What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Elliott Delp. Today we're going to be doing a review on the Teslong TTS 260 thermal monocular. All right, this is one of the few, I guess, Amazon reviews I'm doing. I've kind of stepped back from Amazon reviews, but I thought this was pretty interesting. This is a thermal monocular from Teslong. This is about an $800 thermal. All right, if you guys are familiar with thermals at all, you will know that thermals are not cheap. No thermal is cheap. There is no such thing as a cheap thermal, but this is one of the cheapest ones out there, and you can pick it up on Amazon. So link will be in the description if you do so want to pick this up after the video. But I recommend you watching all the way through first. So this is the little Teslong right here. This is a thermal, and I want to read the specs out right here. This is a 256 by 192 sensor in it. So if you are familiar, there's 256, there's 384, and there's 640. This is the bottom end, but this is also one of the cheaper models. Like, this is a very budget thermal, something you would get into for like coyote hunting, or it can really be used for anything, but my background is coyote hunting and tactical stuff, okay? So smallest sensor, and what that means is you're not gonna get as crystal clear of a picture compared to the larger sensors, all right? It is what it is. So the screen in this thermal, all right, it is a 720 by 540 screen. So when you look through it, it doesn't look very small. It's a very nice size screen. I mean, everything picks up perfectly fine. You have a good field of view. The range on this thermal is, there's supposed to be a detection range of 1,000 yards, and there is supposed to be kind of an identification range of 256 yards. And I would say that you could probably detect at 1,000 yards, but it has to be a large target. When I did my testing of this thermal, I was able to see hay bales 1,000 yards away, but I don't think I could see something like a coyote or a fox, or I think even a deer would be hard to see, but a big hay bale that radiates a lot of heat was identifiable very far away, but I think a smaller animal would be more difficult. I think that a good detection range for an animal of sorts would probably be 400, 500 yards, would probably be pushing it a little bit. The identification range, 260 yards. I would say you might be able to identify the shape of a dog out to 256 yards or 250 some yards, but I wouldn't say you wouldn't be able to know whether it's a coyote or a dog, whatever it may be. And that's one of the drawbacks of thermals in general, is not being able to have a perfect identification. That's why you need to be careful. I like to run a night vision backup of some sort, because you usually can see what's out there. All right, so those are kind of the two main features. It is waterproof, or reasonably waterproof. I wouldn't go soaking this thing. I mean, it's an $800 optic. I like to take care of my stuff. One of the features it has is, golly, freaking bee. All right, small interruption right there. One of the features it has is a laser. It has a green laser on the front as like a laser pointer. I think that's not a very useful feature. I would never use it coyote hunting. I would never use it hog hunting, or some of the applications for this. Now, if you were to use this for, like, if you were to identify cold air leakage in a building or something, it might be useful to point out to people, but for my purpose, it's not very useful, okay? You have 4 different color palettes, all right? So you have your traditional white and black color palettes, those two. Then you have a green color palette, and then you have a red hot color palette. Red hot's my favorite. With all thermals, I think red hot's kind of like my go-to, okay? You have 3 different magnifications. So you have base mag, 2x, and 4x. They are digital zoom, so when you have your normal, I like to just run 1. Okay, because digital zoom never worked good for me. I'm just not a big fan of digital zoom, so I like to use the base mag on this. Works good, field of view is fine, and it picks up enough. I think when you start to zoom in on anything far away, it just gets really blurry. You lose a little bit of that quality when you start to zoom in. This does have photography capability. You can't do video or anything, and it does come with a 16 gigabyte micro SD card, so you can take your photos of the stuff. I'll pop up photos of my cameraman right here, And then I also will pop up some photos of me doing the testing. So when I tested this thing, I did 25 to 100 yards on a man-sized person, Sparky, if you guys are familiar. We stepped it out 25, then backed up to 50, then backed up to 75, then backed up to 100. I could easily identify him out at 100 yards, easy. And it was a good little thermal test. So what I found from the testing, and this is some of my criticisms of this thermal optic or thermal monocular, whatever you may be. No video recording capability, which is one of the things I would like to see. It is, I know, on the budget end of thermals, but I mean, we're in 2022, video recording. Also, internal heat adjustment. So when you are looking through this stuff, there is no way to contrast anything. It's on its base setting, and if you were looking at something hot and something else hot, and they're not the same temperature but they're the same color, that's not a good thing. So the way this is set, Sparky looked like a hay bale, and that's not, I mean, obviously the hay bale and Sparky were two different temperatures. So there's no way to internally adjust, which I think is a downfall. It's not a deal breaker, but I think it's one of the things that probably could be changed with this little thermal optic. Another thing that I noticed, these buttons up here, very basic buttons. You have your power, you have your zoom, you have your color palette, and then you have your photo. There's hardly any click at all, if any, to the buttons. So you don't really know when you're turning this on, when you're turning this off, and it's very, I guess, impractical. Well, not impractical, but not very user-friendly in that sense. And then speaking of that, there's no instructions. Not that there's a lot to this thing. I kind of figured it out relatively quickly. Very simple monocular to use. It's one of those you just grab out and pick it up and go with it. But there's no instructions, okay? For charging, there is a Type-C, so a USB Type-C charger. You just plug it into your wall outlet. Very simple, very easy to do. The battery life, I have not ran it completely dry. I was fairly impressed with the battery life, actually, but it boasts a, let's see, in here. It was a pretty substantial number. I think it was like 20 hours, I do believe. Which is fairly incredible considering it's this little bitty internal battery. But I guess it's not using 20 hours of watching time. So very impressive, okay? And it's very portable, very small, can fit pretty much anywhere, can fit into a pocket or whatnot. Comes with a little band, but I put my own lanyard on it. When I run these thermal optics, I like to have it around my neck. So just, you know, scan, back down. So that's another thing they could install. They could give you a lanyard of some sort instead of this little bungee, which is, I don't think it's that useful. Might be, I'm not sure. All right, so I think that about does it for the review. I think that this is a sweet little thermal monocular for under $1,000, which is pretty hard to come by. ATN does some, but I don't think they have the resolution capabilities that these do. So I would recommend checking this out. Other than my few complaints about the internal adjustment and the buttons, I think this is a very good little monocular, and could be very beneficial if you are doing any type of hunting or scouting. So I think that about does it for the video. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Check me out on Instagram, and I will see you guys next time. As always, peace.